What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some wide receiver versus DB one-on-ones from one of our past training camps. So we're going to be showing some incorrect examples of route running, some correct examples of route running, and how you guys can use this to your advantage and get better. So I hope this video helps you guys out, but also if you would like to train with us this offseason, fellas, we're going to be coming out to 8 more states across the U.S. for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. Next up on our camp tour, we're going to be coming out to Honolulu, Hawaii. That camp is completely sold out. Then we'll be heading out to Boston. That camp is also completely sold out. But then we'll be heading out to Cleveland, Ohio, Austin, Seattle, Newark, Denver, and Los Angeles. So if you guys want some more information, how you can sign up, what we'll be covering at those camps and locations, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you out there, fellas. So again, very first link. Let's get started with this video. So we're going to be going over, this is our routes. At the end of every single camp that we do an hour of, one-on-ones. Get some DBs out there. It's more really a quarterback and wide receiver specific camp, but we'll have some DBs show up and we'll do one-on-ones. And these are realistic one-on-ones where we're actually trying to develop the guys and coach the guys. So I'm going to be walking you through some different reps here, talking about some things that the wide receivers did correct, did wrong, and some of the things that the DBs did correct and did wrong. So this first example is going to be like a stop route, okay? So it's going to be a 10-yard, just stop, sit right on the break, and this DB makes a good play, a little bit of a hold, but we're going to talk about that in a second. But let's break it down from the start. So one of the big focuses that we talk about on this channel at our camps when we train our athletes is knowing how to attack a DB's leverage and having a good pre-snap process. So every time that we come up to the line of scrimmage, there should be a process that we go through in my head. I should be looking at this DB's leverage. That's the first part. So there's 3 parts to a pre-snap process. I want to identify the leverage, how close or how far he is, and then what type of coverage it is. So when it's one-on-ones, obviously it's going to be man-to-man coverage. Now we come into line, we see that he's inside shade, and we see that there's maybe about a yard and a half of space. So that tells me a couple things. Number one, when he's inside shade, that tells me he's trying to prevent the inside route. So if I have a route like a post, like a dig, like a slant, it's probably going to be a little bit more awkward of a break. But if I have a route like a fade route, an out route, a stop route, maybe a comeback, it's going to be not as awkward of a break, but I can't just take off and go run. So what this wide receiver does a good job of is off the line, he squares up the DB and attacks him to the inside. Now, I think something he could have done a little bit better here is maybe step a little bit more aggressive to the inside, sell with his hips better, sell with his shoulders better, just to force this DB to stay honest. But nonetheless, you see when you attack his leverage, that moves him off the platform. That creates more space for us back to the outside, especially if you're running a route like a fade route or a comeback route where you need to give the quarterback space. Attacking his leverage is the best way to go about it. You're going to see some other examples throughout the course of this video where wide receivers don't do this, and you see what happens. So he attacks his leverage good, gets him to move off the platform, and he pushes up vertical. Now, this is the point where this DB is either going to commit to the fade or he's going to be able to sit on the hitch or the stop. And that comes down to a wide receiver not having any indicators when he runs routes. So many times wide receivers will run routes, they'll burst up, they get to this point, they're running hard, they got full stride, they got a good pad level, and by pad level I mean they're not raising their chest up. But right before the break point, when they're about to put the brakes on and drop their hips, what guys will do is they'll slow their speed down. And when you slow down, guess what? The DB slows down. A lot of guys, what they'll do is they'll chop their feet before they break down. That is also an indicator. And then guys will raise up their chest, raise their pad level before they drop their hips. All 3 of those things are all indicators that will tell the DB that I'm about to make a break. So it's on us on the stem of this break, whether I'm running a comeback, a stop, whatever route it is that's not a fade, I have to make it look like a fade. Now, when this wide receiver gets to the top of the break, I feel like there is definitely a little bit of a hold right here, which is how this DB was able to commit. I think the wide receiver did a really, really good job of not slowing down and not giving away any indicators. However, when you break on a route like a stop route, it cannot be, because a DB's in man coverage is supposed to be watching what with his eyes? He's supposed to be watching your hips, right? So if you have this kind of like slower sink of your hips or it's not a violent drop, and again, it's very, very hard to think about this while you're running the actual route. I talk to you about this like we're watching film together. Like, film study is one of the most important things about just football as a whole. You go out to the field, you work a situation, you work a rep, you work a drill, you're working one-on-ones, practice, whatever it is. Then you go back, you watch the film, you break it down so you could learn from it. You're not saying to think about this during the route. A lot of people get that wrong. We can't think about this during the route. It's got to be a habit. It's got to be automated. But at this break point, I feel like we could have gotten a little bit more separation if at the break we were more violent with the hip drop and we're able to stop with less steps. And you guys being aggressive with the hip drop is how we can put the brakes on on and just drop on a dime, if you will. But for the most part, pretty good route. I think definitely got away with a little bit of a grab there. That honestly might not even get called. So honestly, overall, pretty good play by the DB here. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time, then we'll get to a few more routes that we have from this camp. And this is our camp in St. Louis, Missouri, by the way. So now, next clip we're going to be looking at here is a fade route. And so this is similar to what I was talking about. When you come up to the line, you got to have a pre-snap process, and you have to understand what you're doing based on the route that you were given. So this wide receiver is going to be running a fade. So this is an incorrect example of a fade, and then we're going to be showing a correct example of a fade and what you might want to do. So let's go through the pre-snap process before I play this full speed. So he comes up, he sees that the DB is lined up inside shade, right? So he's inside shade. We got maybe about a yard of space, same type of coverage look that we had the last time. So an inside breaking route, because he's trying to stop the inside route, because he doesn't have help over here. Wherever his leverage is, that means that he doesn't have help in that direction. But he's inside shade, so he's trying to prevent that route. So a post, a dig, a slant are going to be a little awkward. But we should be good on a route like a fade if I take care of business off the line. Because remember, on a fade, we need to give my quarterback room to throw me open. So what do you have to do with your release? You got to close that cushion. Anytime there's space between us and the DB, let's close it and let's threaten his leverage. That's the best way to get a DB to move. Any DB. Threaten him where he doesn't want you to go. So let's watch what this wide receiver does. He just kind of takes off and runs, but you see how this DB squeezes all the way to the sideline. And even if, fellas, and this is a great play by that DB, but even if this quarterback threw a perfect ball over the shoulder, that is not enough space for the quarterback to lead us open. Let's put this into perspective here. At the start of the route, at the start of the play, he started at the top of the numbers, and he ended up all the way to maybe about a yard or two from the sideline. That's not good, because that's a DB just riding you all the way to the sideline and cutting down field space. So what he probably should have done, and he doesn't have to attack his leverage. There's other releases you could use in this case. Like maybe like a little hesitation move, keep the DB honest inside, then get back into the route, but do something called getting skinny. Getting skinny is when off the line, and again, being a bigger wide receiver against a DB who's smaller than you, you could use your size to your advantage. You don't got to play that speed game with that DB if you don't want to. You could try to be physical, use your size, use your body to get skinny. So rather than him just running away, maybe right here he tries to get skinny, which is essentially him taking his inside hip and trying to run right past this DB's outside hip. Get skinny. Even if that DB's on your hip, he's getting hands, he's getting physical, you have space. And that space to the sideline is so easy for the quarterback to drop that thing in the bucket and give you an easy. It's an easy throw. Trust me, take it from me. Have experience with the position. That's an easy throw for a quarterback. But we got to give him space. We can't just take off and run, especially when he's inside shade. His whole purpose inside shade, prevent the inside route, force you to the sideline, because the sideline is a form of help. So let's play this full speed, and then we're going to break down another example of a wide receiver running a fade, but doing it correctly. So now remember how I said that you don't have to always attack the DB's leverage inside. You could kind of give him a little hesitation move to the outside. So this is what this wide receiver does. He gives a little hesitation. DB stays honest, keeps his leverage, and then he bursts up on the route. However, he gets skinny on the route and gives the quarterback space. So this is how it should look. And this, again, isn't the only way to do it, but it is a way to get separation. So let's play at full speed. So watch what he does. So he comes off, gives a little hesitation, but you see how he dips that shoulder and gives that move inside. Look at the difference of space. Now, this ball was crazy underthrown. This ball is thrown on time and leads the wide receiver. This is an easy completion. Quarterback just flat out missed this throw. And again, in one-on-ones, you honestly, as a receiver, people are so quick to blame the quarterbacks in one-on-ones, but you got to take it from their perspective, usually in a camp setting like this. And I'm not making excuses for them because you do have to hit the throw. But usually in a camp setting, they have no timing with any wide receiver that they are throwing to. It's a camp. You're not out there with teammates that you guys work with 5 days a week. So sometimes the timing's a little bit off. As a wide receiver, hey, we're there to get better. Let's just focus on running good routes. People know if you ran a good route or if you didn't run a good route. Just know that, okay? They know that the quarterback situation is tough sometimes. So when we do this route, you see how he comes off, gives us a little hesitation move. Now, it's just a subtle hesitation, like a little change in speed, but DBs are taught when they are in, and the reason why this release works is because DBs are taught, if you're inside shade and this wide receiver gives a little hesitation to the outside, expect him to try to throw a fake and cut inside. They're taught to keep that leverage. Don't overcommit to it and jump when he hesitates, because then he could just slip back underneath and run a slant. Like I'm sure you guys have all seen that slide release before. So this kind of builds off of that. I think this wide receiver could have maybe hesitated for a little bit longer, but I really like how when he bursted up onto the streak, he stayed low, he dipped the shoulder, he got skinny, he was hip to hip with his DB, and look at the difference here when he throws this cut, how much more space he has to the sideline than the last example. That's called getting skinny. That's running a quarterback-friendly route. And they started, honestly, at the same exact spot. They both started at the top of the numbers, and he ended up running this route like almost at the bottom of the numbers, not a yard from the sideline. That is how you get open. That is how you run a quarterback-friendly route, is by getting skinny, especially on a deep ball. Now, this would apply, same idea, if you were running like an out route. If you were right here and you broke on the out route, you have space, right? If you were 3 yards to the right and you had to break on an out route, you got no space. Same thing on a comeback. He's got space. You have to give the quarterback space whenever it's an outside breaking route or a fade versus inside shade press. Do not just take off and run. Now, like I said, ball was underthrown. That's going to happen sometimes, fellas. We just have to do the best we can with the route that we run. And really, honestly, one-on-ones are to get better and to develop. Okay, so now, next example we're going to be showing here is a great release that you guys can use in one-on-ones when you're maybe going against, and this is another thing where quarterback kind of sold this rep, threw the ball a little bit inside. Again, like we said, it's tough. It's not the best timing situation for a quarterback. But nonetheless, still have to be able to hit the throws. This is a great release to use if you are a bigger physical type wide receiver going up against a DB who's a little bit smaller than you, maybe not as strong as you, and that is going to be something called a shock release. Okay, now this shock release is completely legal. It is not an illegal release. A lot of people ask us this question all the time. Is that, like, are we allowed to do that? Is that something that's going to get flagged? Like, this is completely illegal release. So a legal release. So let's play this full speed. He comes off, gives him this little shock, gets the DB knocked off balance, and we got him, right? We got him. We got a ton of space. DB did a great job recovering. Quarterback could have put that thing. As a quarterback, you want to try to put that thing here over his outside shoulder, not inside shoulder, because that's an easier play for the DB, and the receiver has to come back and slow down. However, that's separation. We got open on this play because he was aggressive with this shock release. So is there any type of technique to use a shock release? A lot of people will say no. A lot of people will say, oh, you just want to come off the line and push the DB. But if you push the DB and you have a bad base, you're not driving from your legs, you're not trying to explode from the ground up, you probably could get knocked off balance, if I'm being quite honest, or the DB could pull you and you could fall flat on your face. So you need to make sure that we have some drive from this. So I would coach it honestly the same way as you would block, right? So if you're blocking, like let's say you're stock blocking a DB, it's a run play. When you guys stock block, the low man is going to win. So you have to get lower than the DB. You got to drive with your feet and keep your feet active, and you're exploding from your hips. You're not just using your arms. That's why like a lot of people will say like, oh, well, receivers should do bench press because it helps with blocking. No, it doesn't. Blocking all comes from your hips and it comes from your legs. Your arms are just kind of along for the ride and extending. I would say like your grip is more important than like bench press would be. I would say a great exercise to help with that explosion from the lower half would be like power cleans, jump squats, anything that involves your legs and your hips. But that's how we would do this shock release. We come at this DB, we shock him, we drive from my lower half, we knock him off balance, and then we have space. Just make sure, I feel like this wide receiver may have looked back a little bit early. And again, maybe that quarterback who was thrown to him, I don't exactly remember who threw this rep, but maybe he was underthrowing a lot of passes, so he's expecting the ball a little bit sooner, whatever it might be. But if your quarterback's going to put that thing out there, make sure we don't look back too early because that will slow us down. Let's get separation. Let's keep separation. Then let's try to find that ball. But shock release, fellas, is a great release that you guys can use if you're a bigger wide receiver going up against a DB who's smaller or maybe not as strong. Again, great job by this DB recovering and playing those hands of the wide receiver. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, we are coming out to 8 more states this offseason for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver camps. All of these camps will definitely sell out, fellas. Our Boston and Honolulu camp are already completely sold out, and the rest will fill up here probably within the next month or so. So we'd love to have you out to one of our camps, fellas. Check out that very first link in the description below if you're interested. I'll see you guys next time.